Does a real estate agent care about what a fill in the blank type of lien is? When it happens to them, they do, but what do they care about every time? What? Listing, selling, and their commission. I think it's time for us to kind of get out of the house of like, we're gonna talk, title talk, title talk, title talk.
Well, I want to take the opportunity to welcome our listening and watching audience back to another episode of Closing Time here in 2026. I'm your host, Iain Bryant, and super thrilled to have on today one of the founders of CloseSimple and a good friend of mine, Bill Svobada. Welcome, Bill.
Thanks for having me here. It's a pleasure.
Now, not to get too personal too quick, but you had a big event in December. Tell us about that. I'm excited about this.
Well, my wife and I, we welcomed our first baby into the world, a little girl, Eliana Valentina Svobada. And this girl has stolen my heart, I'll tell you that much. And total different life now. I mean, talk about a new chapter. It's been exciting.
Like 2 months in and life has already changed forever, you can tell.
Oh gosh, the smile on my face, and this little girl can't do wrong.
I love it, man. Well, that is, I'm certain you've done a lot in your life and in your various escapades in business, but I'm sure you will be the best father. That will be the role that you embrace the most and will be known for. You're gonna kill it, man. Although I do have to say, I have 3, the youngest of which is 11. I'm sleeping soundly through the night, and I look more tired than you do, Bill. So I don't know how to explain that. Because we just talked about you've been up a lot, but you look great.
Well, you're kind of a big deal at Stewart. Like you wear, I would say you wear a lot of hats in your role. Like you do a lot. I could see why you're a little tired. I could see that.
Well, that's what I tell everybody. So, I want to set this up a little bit because it's a little non-traditional to have you on our show here, and the reason is in almost every episode we interview agents, right? And we hear the story of our title agents from all across the country, some in small shops, some in large shops, some founders and some executives, and we all benefit from hearing those stories. But as I was thinking about, especially early on in 2026, how can we bring real value to our title agent community who listens, you came to mind, and I'll tell you why. Because something that, frankly, I struggle with significantly, and I know I've heard it from our agent community as well, is the concept of how do you really stand out from a marketing and branding perspective as a title agent in your community with all the competition, primarily to real estate agents and brokers. And I've thought about sort of your rise in the industry, which has been unlike anything I've seen. 10 years ago, I think it was an Alta conference, maybe in Scottsdale, where literally you knew no one and no one knew you, to growing in a pretty phenomenal way. Literally now you speak at every industry event. You actually have your own production that is widely distributed, the GSR, which we'll talk about later. But you've kind of embodied the ability to think creatively and in an innovative way as it pertains to marketing and branding. And so later on, just want to get into unpacking how you've sort of reimagined that and been so successful. I think there's probably a lot of lessons myself and our agent community can learn from that.
That sounds great. I'm excited to chat, and those compliments mean the world to me. It's like you said, when my co-founder Paul and I got into this, I remember we walked into that Alta one in Scottsdale, Arizona, and we had these flyers for our business, CloseSimple, and we just went up to agent after agent after agent, thinking that we had the coolest thing ever here, and nobody cared. And we quickly realized like something had to change. And yeah, I mean, that's a bit of the story there, but it took so much work and intentional work. But I'm excited to unpack a little of that today and how title agents can really, what they can do to get their brand out there also.
That's awesome. Let's take a step back, and I'd love to just hear. Tell me about your current role at CloseSimple, and kind of the brief summary of your company, as well as the journey, kind of professionally, that led you here.
Co-founded CloseSimple, and 2016, I believe, was our first all-to-one. We had one or two customers at that time out of Minnesota, and a lot of people know CloseSimple as the pizza tracker for title. If somebody can track their Domino's pizza, we believe they should know the status of their home closing. If it's a $400,000, $500,000 home closing, so we created that pizza tracker for title. Started with emails and texts, and as we've grown, it's grown into a portal with e-signing, document sharing, all white labeled to the title company, fraud prevention built in, payments right in there. Now we have the FinSend solutions, constantly evolving. And one of the biggest things that we've really tried to do is always listen to our customers. We're not the smartest people in the room. Like I said, like I kind of hinted at, we came into that all-to-one thinking we had the hottest thing ever and nobody cared. And that's when we really, like, our ears perked up and go like, okay, we need to start listening more than trying to sell. And that was really, I think that's one of the biggest things that we've really tried to lean into over the years. But I'm the marketing director here. I don't know if that's the exact title. I lead all of our marketing. I obsess over the spaces and the fonts and all that stuff. I think about how is our brand image, because the title companies that trust us, with their software, I want to make them look like rock stars. So when they look at CloseSimple, I want them to look at it and go like, I love everything that company's putting out. I want to look like that. I want my brand to look that good. And that's really the thing that fuels me a lot.
That's so cool, and I don't say that lightly. I mean, your rise from a totally unknown individual in the industry to being extremely well recognized and as an expert as it pertains to marketing, as a representative of CloseSimple, and frankly, to be invited to speak on many of these topics throughout the industry, was very quick. I'm sure it didn't feel quick to you, but from an outsider's perspective, and it's a recognition of your talent and capability. But take me back to maybe college or post-college. Where did this journey begin, and how did it lead you to sort of this level of proficiency and lessons learned in the vein of branding and marketing?
Here's the super quick fast forward. I started an online custom t-shirt company out of my dorm room back in 2003 maybe. Sold it in 2018. So after I got into the title industry, I realized like, gosh, this apparel company, Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, they were all customers of ours. Everybody was ordering online. And I realized I wasn't in love with t-shirts the same way as I was in love with this title software. Ended up selling that business, and I was working at the time 2 to 4 hours a week on that. I had a team running it, and but entrepreneurial, that was my big thing. I always kind of go, how can I make something easier for customers? Like, where's that thing that is the pain point? And early on, it was with t-shirts. It was with ordering huge quantities of apparel. And like I said, LinkedIn, Facebook, Google, these companies are all ordering massive orders with us. And they had no idea I was a kid in a college dorm room, starting this thing. And fast forward, to be able to sell a business was huge. Along the way, I got asked to speak a lot on entrepreneurship, starting businesses, creativity, you name it. And I had just an amazing opportunity once to do a TEDx talk in 2015. And this is like right before I got into title. And I did the TEDx talk. The guy that did this TEDx, huge TEDx, 1,800 people. And he goes, Bill, I love your story. You could speak on whatever you want. And he gave me 6 minutes to do a TEDx talk. And I did it. And, you know, that TEDx talk spread online. And at the time, I owned that t-shirt company. And it helped with sales. It helped with everything because I talked about adding value and does your brand add value to your customers? And I used the lens of, because I owned a t-shirt company, does your apparel, does your t-shirts, does everything about your brand add value or does it cheapen it? And what was funny was when I got into the title industry, you know, my t-shirt days were winding down. I was pumped about this title software that my co-founder Paul and I were building. We had a couple customers here in Minnesota. My t-shirt company was on autopilot with the team, and the title industry heard that I had done a TEDx talk, and they're like, hey, you know, we normally don't ask vendors to do talks because vendors are just going to pitch their stuff, but you did a TEDx talk. Would you give a talk here at Alta Springboard? And I remember I gave an Alta Springboard talk in Atlanta, Georgia. And that was really the talk that kind of put me on the market as like, this guy speaks, he talks about stuff that's different than title. He's not trying to tell us how to do title better. He's trying to tell us how to embrace customer experience better. And that was really the thing that changed everything. People still come up to me to this day. I talked about a pair of boots and a black pair of Tom Fords. And now, Ian, we're talking like, this is 9-10 years later, people are still coming up to me at title conferences asking about this pair of boots. This story stuck. And now I have more to talk about than that. But that's my quick, you know, like a recap. How did I get to where I am with CloseSimple and, you know, kind of getting around the industry?
So I guess, and I'm sure it's evolved over time, but how have you thought about, in terms of kind of the fundamentals of marketing, you look at the industry that we're in, and how did you sort of reimagine kind of creating value in the space such that people wanted to listen to the message that you were bringing? How did you think about it as it pertains to this industry? Because obviously you've been very successful at it, and I know that you know, you're a charismatic guy, you're a good speaker, but you've been very intentional and strategic about how you thought and implemented that. What were those fundamentals, and what did it look like in the title industry specific?
It all boils down to this one concept of just changing the game. And I call it the Michael Jordan principle. When I get to speak, this is kind of one of the things I talk about a lot, actually. The Michael Jordan principle. Like, if you were going to challenge Michael Jordan, you know, the greatest basketball player of all time, we can go back and forth on LeBron or Michael, whatever. But if you were going to challenge Michael Jordan to one game and wanted to beat him, what's the one game you would never challenge him to? Basketball, right? I wouldn't challenge him to anything with a ball. I would challenge him to like crocheting or something totally random. Title facts, you know, a trivia of title. The point is, you got to change the game. You can't expect to go in there and just challenge the best to what they're best at. I realized when we came into the industry, there were speakers that could speak a ton better about title insurance policies, about you name all the little things that go into just doing a closing. There were people who knew this stuff way better than I did. There were people that could do so many different things. And I just looked at it and I go, what is my one lane that I can run, and how am I gonna own that conversation better than anybody else in the industry? And at that point, we weren't talking about customer experience the same way. Sales and marketing was a different conversation, and that was my lane. I didn't try to go up there, and if there was an economist from Stewart, I wasn't going to try to outdo the economist. You know, if an Alta representative was up there talking about a policy, I wasn't going to try to talk about policies better. I was going to go up there and talk about customer experience and not sell my business, but make people go, I like what that guy said. Finally, somebody's saying what I've been thinking. I got to go up to him and talk to him after. And that was my whole goal. No sales pitch, add value, and actually make people go, finally, somebody's saying what I've been thinking.
Yeah. Well, you've done an incredible job with that. And I think kind of what I mentioned at the outset, there are, and I know because we have thousands of agents, and I talk to hundreds of agents every year, and this is something that we all struggle with is sort of that differentiation within the local market with real
Yeah.
estate agents and brokers. If we were to get granular on this, how would you advise a title agent to begin to think about applying those principles in their local market? And maybe they service one county, or maybe they're a multi-state agent. Regardless of size, all agents have the same challenge. How would you ask them to begin to think about differentiating like that?
I'll use this example, and I love talking about this. I had the privilege of speaking to a huge title company once, all of their sales reps, it was like 30 of them. And as we were talking about what is their differentiator, they go down the list of, well, we have how many locations, we've been around for how long, all these typical things that they're easy to talk, they're table stakes in our industry in a sales pitch. And I always think there's power in the second or the third question. So like, well, what else? Well, what else? And when you go like that and you kind of brush those little things aside and go, if another title company could challenge us to that, let's just take it off the table. So eventually we got to this one idea, and this one idea that they had was, we have an attorney, a whole department of attorneys here, and we have what we call an open door policy, where at any time our staff can go and knock on their door to get an answer. And I go, that's amazing. I go, do your real estate agents know about it? Do your lenders know about that? Do your customer, have you used that in your marketing, that you have a whole wing of attorneys that they have an open door policy? And they go, well, not really. I mean, it's just how we do business. And right there, it was like a light bulb went off in their head that the way they do business is different than the way other title companies are talking about their businesses. And they had an opportunity. And I said, what if we just started marketing the attorney open door policy that, hey, real estate agents, when you work with us, we have an attorney open door policy. Any of our staff can walk into our attorney's offices and get an answer like that. What does that mean for you? You're not going to wait 2 or 3 days for an answer. And instantly it was like a light bulb went off, and they go, we don't have to do a single thing different in our business. We just have to talk about something that's different than how many locations we have, how long we've been in business, how many years that means we have experience. And all of a sudden it became a marketing campaign. Yeah. I think about it too. It's like we talk about texting. You got your phone probably right there. I got mine. Title companies text. Like that's something that's become a part of our industry. Well, do you talk about your response time and how long it takes for you to get back a text? Like if you just said, as a part of your marketing campaign to realtors, it sucks when you text your title company and they don't respond. So we have the 1 hour text reply policy. And all of a sudden, that every person in your company, if they're texting, they reply in under an hour. But the very fact that you said to a realtor campaign in like a social media or an email, it sucks when you text us and you don't get an answer. Or not us, it sucks when you text your title company and they don't get an answer. That's why we have, and all of a sudden they go, yeah, it does suck when I text someone and they don't respond. Oh, but this title company responds because they have a 1 hour policy. I'm glad I work with them, or I need to work with them more. It's just basically changing the way that we're thinking of marketing.
I love that. And it made me think, I know over the past couple of years, whether it was an interview series I think you did a couple of years ago, or just frankly your presence in the industry and exposure to this community, you've talked across the U.S. to some of the top producing real estate agents in the country, and you've spent some significant time with them, maybe as much as anybody I know from the industry. Framing it from kind of the receiver of that marketing message, what are those top producers looking for out of their title company? Meaning, what do they really care about and what do they not care about? Because I think we confuse those things sometimes, and you spend a lot of time with those top producers and how they assess really their vendor as it pertains to title.
I'll use this as an example. I know one top producer, unbelievable amount of sales he's done. His name's Gary Gold. I got the privilege of doing an Alta webinar with him. He's the guy that sold the Playboy Mansion for $105 million. He topped that with another one. It was like $295 million. The guy's broke every record in the books. And I asked him off camera and I was like, Gary, give me an example of how does a title rep win your business? I'm sure you got all these people scammering to get into Gary Gold's, book of business. They want one of your deals because one of your deals is equivalent to 20 other deals, And I go, what does it look like for you? He goes, Bill, you wouldn't believe how many title reps are just reaching out. He's like, I trust this one. He's been going with this one for years. And he goes, you want to hear about the one that broke that though, that actually broke through the wall and got a new order from me? And I go, yes, absolutely. Because these realtors, once they find somebody they like, it's really hard to break them from that, right?
Yeah.
But he goes, you want to know what this one title rep did? And he goes, so I got this listing. It was a big listing. And this title rep constantly dropping me emails, all this stuff. She'd been at it for a while. But this one time I get this listing and then in the mail, I get this big manila envelope full of all the closing everything I'm gonna need for the closing. And she goes, hey, just wanted to congratulate you on getting whatever, 444 Main Street. I did all the prep work for you. I just wanted to say, I hope it goes great. If you ever need help on a closing, I'd love to help you, but here's all the work. You can take this to your title company and save them some labor, or I could help you. Something to that extent. And he goes, Bill, I gave her the business. Why? Why? Because it spoke to his language. And I think one of the things is that sounds really self-centered when it's like, hey, we can't just be giving away our stuff to realtors. But what hit me was it's speaking the language of realtors. And I challenge title companies to say this. When you're talking to a real estate agent, you want to say, hey, your goal is to be out there listing and selling. We want you out there listing and selling. We've invested in a lot of software. We do this, because we will want you thinking about when you give us a file, is it going to close on time, accurate? We don't want you thinking about that, because what do we want you thinking about? Listing and selling. And then give us the files. We'd love to work with you. When you change the narrative to talking about what a realtor wants to be doing, which is listing and selling and making commission, all of a sudden their ears perk and they go, finally somebody that's talking to me like I want to be talked to about what I care about. I don't care about how a file opens or closes or what a title search is or this or that. What do I care about? Commission. When you speak to them about, we want you out there listing and selling, we want you getting the biggest commissions, we want to make you look good, that's what they care about.
It's an incredible story, Bill. And I actually was not aware of that story, but that's amazing. And you want to talk about a differentiated way of showing up when you got 3 channels of email and phone and text, and there's just noise, right, all day, every day. But you get a 3-dimensional object through the mail that puts them in a position to save time and money. Like, how cool is that? I love that. I love that
title rep took the initiative and goes, you know what, it's going to be some work. And look at this. It did take some time. Think of it. Gary got the listing, and before it even closed, before the whole thing, this rep is pulling all this work, going, I'm going to do all the, you can tell how much time it took them.
Yeah.
It's not just like, oh, here's an idea, I'm going to do it. It took planning. And I think that's the missing piece in this whole marketing and sales. We need to be investing in it, and it's not a quick fix.
So you came from, you've been in the industry for a good bit now, but you came from outside the industry. What are, without calling out specifically, because you could probably make me feel bad about this, but what are some of the biggest mistakes or incorrect approaches you see with title companies out to their communities, real estate agents, lenders, etc., in terms of marketing and sales? And you've touched on some of these so far, but maybe just a quick hit list of like kind of the well-intentioned but misdirected approaches to sales and marketing. What do you see out there?
I mean, I go back and 2026 is my year of going, the title industry has done a great job of adding value with software, with doing all of the things we've needed to do. Fraud prevention, now FinCEN, all these things. Like we have the full back end office. I think now is the time for us to actually talk about what we've done in terms of how that benefits real estate agents, lenders. And I have this phrase, and I kind of already said it, the word should or shouldn't. You know, I said it before where it's like, doesn't it suck when you text your title company and they don't text you back? It shouldn't be that way. Here at XYZ Title, we do this. I find so many title companies not talking to the pain that a real estate agent feels, and instead they're talking about CE credits. What is wire? How does wire fraud happen? What's this new type of fraud? What does FinCEN mean? What does this mean? A lot of title companies, if you look at their social media, they have definitions of something related to title in their social media. Does a real estate agent care about what a fill in the blank type of lien is? When it happens to them, they do, but what do they care about every time? What? Listing, selling, and their commission. I think it's time for us to kind of get out of the house of like, we're gonna talk, title talk. If it's not focused on what a real estate agent is feeling, what a lender is feeling, that unspoken, I think we can kind of start moving on and go like, this is the greatest opportunity for us right now. I like to say it like this, a title company, if they ran a whole entire marketing campaign off of, let me think of the right way to say this. A real estate closing should not be stressful. That's your line, and then you go, so at XYZ Title, we fill in the blank. That's the entire marketing campaign. You could have 20 social media things. You could do 3 months of email marketing. A real estate closing should not be stressful or feel stressful for realtors. That's your whole campaign. So at XYZ Title, we fill in the blank. And then your emails are all about that value proposition and what it means for the title company. Remember that thing in Tommy Boy where there's that line, I forget exactly, and I'd butcher it if I tried, but Tommy goes, look, people want to see the guarantee on the can. They don't care about a guarantee or that you stand behind a product if it's not on the can. Realtors don't care what FinCEN is. They don't care what wire fraud is. They don't care about anything. They just want to know that they're protected. And it sounds stupid to say that, like, this is almost blasphemy to just dumb it down to what a realtor really cares about that way. And it's not making a realtor sound uneducated or anything. They care about this stuff, but what they really care about, they're gonna choose a title company that takes the guesswork. They just want the insurance policy. They just wanna know that when they choose the title company, they're protected against wire fraud, that the title company knows what they're doing. They don't have to worry about FinCEN. So I think it's the greatest opportunity to stop talking about locations, how long we've been in business. You know, we've said this stuff already on the webinar, on this podcast. Start talking about what your customers care about. A real estate closing should not feel stressful. Closing day should not feel like a whirlwind. Like, what are those things that you either stand for or stand against? That's your whole marketing campaign. And then you fill in the blank after it with, so at XYZ Title, we boom. That's the greatest marketing campaign that I think a title company could be doing right now.